Ok, ya. Eso, perdón, o sea, sí, dígame, yo les digo, ¿saben qué? Ya vamos a ir empezando.
Sí, déjame grabarlo. Pues en lo que se ve celular.
Pues, 3 minutos. Entonces,
te sube ya tu currículo de gestión de más perdidos.
sí, no.
Desde el 9.
¿Ya?
Sí.
Ok, listo. Le digo, Ok. Oh, bueno, en español, ¿eh? Hola a todos, ¿qué tal? Buenos mediodías. Estamos aquí para un seminario extraordinario, un seminario especial, ya que tenemos el honor de tener la visita del doctor Kevin Page, que nos va a hablar sobre ese título, ya les dirá él, pero yo les voy a dar un poco la semblanza de quién es Kevin Page, que es una persona muy reconocida en el ámbito de patrimonio geológico, cosas de geodiversidad, geoparques, y tiene un historial bastante largo. Voy a decir nada más algunas cosas para no echarme aquí una plática de su semblanza. Él es egresado de la Universidad de Cambridge con doctorado en el University College of London. Él es inglés del Reino Unido. Él es el editor en jefe de la revista Geoheritage y de hecho uno de los creadores de esa revista, que es bastante nueva. Apenas surgió en el 2015, ¿no? Algo así, o 2009, ¿verdad? También es miembro del Grupo Mundial de Especialistas de la Unión Internacional de Conservación Natural, la UICN, sobre sitios de patrimonio geológico. Y actualmente preside la organización no gubernamental que se llama ProGEO o ProGEO, que es la Asociación Internacional para la Conservación del Patrimonio Geológico, de la que fue también fundador. Entonces, eso es tiene un currículum impresionante. Y ahora tenemos el gusto de tenerlo aquí de visita, que nos va a hablar sobre geoparques, patrimonio geológico, y los dejo entonces con el doctor Page. Adelante.
Gracias, muchas gracias. I'm afraid I'm going to speak in English because my Spanish is terrible, so I do apologize to start off with. But I'm very honored to be here, to invitation to come and talk to you today. So I'm going to talk about various aspects, international aspects of the conservation and geological heritage. So now, in most countries, things started off on a very small scale. In Britain, in the early part of the 19th century, people were already thinking about landscapes. So some areas were conserved because they were threatened by quarrying, but it wasn't really until the end of the 19th century that specifically geological features were being protected for further geological intrinsic values, like this fossil forest in Glasgow here. But it was a very long time before any systematic approach. And as part of the vision of rebuilding Britain after the Second World War, the first list of geological sites was already in existence in 1945, and the first legislation to protect geological heritage as monuments was implemented in 1949. The early selections were a classic selection of well-known sites, but we didn't have a systematic inventory. The process of that was not established until 1977. So actually, establishing the whole process and the recognition of geological conservation can take quite a long time. Naturally, people started to think about a sort of global perspective of this, what is important globally. And really the first to actually do this with any geology was the World Heritage Convention of 1972. But these are really the grandest, the most important sites. They have to have superlative natural phenomena, areas of exceptional natural beauty, outstanding examples represent major stages of Earth history, outstanding ongoing ecological and biological processes, evolution, ecosystems. These are the absolute highest value sites. Most of the sites we work with, which are actually internationally important, don't meet these criteria. So you have here the classic Grand Canyon in the United States, needs no introduction. This is the Monte Perdido National Park in central Spain, in Aragon, highest area of limestone karst in Europe, with a lot of very interesting karstic features and ice caves. And a UK example, the Giant's Causeway in the north of Ireland, very important for these sort of basalt forms, columns. So these are some of the most important sites on the planet. And this recognition started in 72. A little bit later, people started to think about the geological heritage, specifically geological heritage, as opposed to like these superlative global examples. So the organization I'm honored to be president of, ProGEO, was effectively founded in 1988 as a European working group to raise the profile of geological heritage above that of just national. Although it wasn't actually a ProGEO meeting, but it was a collaboration. The Dean meeting in 1991 represents a milestone. It's the first real international symposium and set some very important principles. ProGEO formally was established in 1993 to promote a coordinated European policy for geoconservation. And formally, there always was a global aspect to it, but in 1992, this became an actual formal part of the organization. So we went from effectively a European NGO to a global NGO. And one of the objectives in ProGEO has always been to act towards a global list of outstanding geological sites. So they transcend sort of national boundaries. Another very important thing, as I mentioned, is Geoheritage. This is our collaboration with Springer to produce a scientific journal. We established it in 2009, and it's gradually developed subsequently. So this is very much the journal where things are discussed about geological heritage in all aspects. It's a very broad subject because it can include heritage stones, building stones, cultural associations, with geological heritage. We have a very successful special issue at the moment on geomythology and the connection of culture and geology. Now, the first global geosites beyond just Europe were actually sort of originated at the end of the 1980s. And ProGEO worked with IUGS, International Union for Geological Sciences, and with IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, and UNESCO to develop a program of global sites, recognizing global sites. And by 1990, we had the famous Gilgies list, the Global Indicative List of Geological Sites. As it says here, these should be confined to sites of international importance. The more comprehensive IUGS sites database could probably enumerate sites in their thousands to ensure that important sites are not forgotten and overlooked. Both IUS geosites and Gilgies could be of great future value in the present context to state parties in the World Heritage Convention. So there's a vision of identifying the important sites and use that information to form other programs like World Heritage. Now, a few countries implemented this, for instance, Spain, by selecting a series of classification categories and produce some work, but generally it didn't go very far because the project was effectively abandoned due to competition for resources and change in priorities within UNESCO and IUGS, and that included the development of global geoparks. This is one of the lovely things which came out of the Dean Symposium. It's very French. It's very emotional. It doesn't always work in every country. But the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and the cradle of life, of renewal and of the metamorphosis of life. Its long evolution, its slow rise to maturity has shaped the environment in which we live. Our history and the history of the Earth are closely linked. Its origins are our origins, its history are our history, and its future will be our future. It's very emotional, it's very French, but it's set very early on in 1991, a sort of vision, a feeling for why geological sciences are important. And although it's not explicit as regards cultural links, it's the beginning of that general feeling. Around about 2000, okay, prior to 2000, 4 areas in Europe, in Spain, Greece, Germany, and France, of course, they established several areas were working with a sustainable approach to geological heritage, working with communities, developing tourism and things. And this became the European Geoparks network in 2000. A geopark is an area or sites and areas of geological significance, rarity, or beauty in which geological features play a significant part and where the geological heritage is protected and developed at the same time. And this is all about fostering socio-economic development in a context of a geological heritage. So it's very much akin to UNESCO's Biosphere Reserve Programme from 1971, but specifically geology. It became a UNESCO programme in 2015. The problem with geoparks when one's talking about general global geological site designations is only areas large enough to actually develop a sustainable tourism initiative can actually be included as a global geopark. And it's also, as UNESCO say on their website, it's not actually a permanent designation either, because it's reassessed every 4 years. So it's not it can have World Heritage Site features, but it's about sites which have a structure existing for sustainable development. So a lot of the sites we work on, mineral sites, fossil sites, they might be globally important. They don't fit into this box either. The Global Geoparks Network is an association which works with UNESCO subject to French legislation. So there's lots of statutes and things within it. It's globally set up. There are 5 regional networks: Asia Pacific, European, Latin American and Caribbean, African, and North American. So these are groups within this global initiative. So that got underway on a global scale officially in 2015. Meanwhile, the International Union of Geological Sciences has created its own sort of designation for global important sites. And a commission was set up in 2016 within the IUGS, which of course oversees the principles of geological science globally. It now has commissions focusing on geosites, collections, and heritage stones. And they've established a program of 100 geological sites. We're now in the third version of this, the third 100 geological sites. And these are essentially the iconic sites for geologists, sites which we would all recognize as being sort of really important for our science. It also advises UNESCO on World Heritage and Geopark things. So this is a very good example here. This is Sicker Point in Scotland, which is the first vision of deep time from Hutton at the end of the 18th century, with Devonian unconformable on Silurian. Hutton's work from that period is brilliant. He realized that the Earth was old. So this is really the inspiration for everything we do today. So the IUGS has a commission on sites, and they're working on this program. So we're now in the third reincarnation, but these are very much the iconic sites for geological sciences. They're not areas which are for sustainable development and community, and they're not the most important sites, or important in inverted commas sites for all peoples of the Earth, like World Heritage. So there's a lot of sites which don't fit within this. Meanwhile, another organization, the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, is developing another sort of international program. Now, IUCN was founded in 1948. It's the world's largest and most diverse environmental network. more than 1,400 member organizations, 17,000 experts are involved. And within the World Commission for Protected Areas is a geoheritage specialist group. And it advises UNESCO on natural heritage and world heritage. So all these organizations have a level of interaction. The Geoheritage Specialist Group is particularly important because it's been developed in the theme of geological heritage and conservation, and why is it important? And I should say, it's not just heritage, it's not, it's actual geodiversity in the sense it's active systems as well. And if one wants to influence conservation, if one wants to get these sites looked after, IUCN is the organization to work through, because countries throughout the planet listen to IUCN. It sets the basic definitions and framework for conservation everywhere. So if you got something through IUCN, you have an impact globally. So far, the group has produced a whole load of guidelines, karst protection. This is a very interesting one recently submitted about arguing the point that geodiversity and biodiversity are all part of nature. And there's been a lot of really important achievements. These are resolutions at World Conservation Congresses. These are influencing the planet. So the one at the top here in 2008 puts conservation, geodiversity, and geological heritage on this agenda. In 2013 or 2012, valuing conserving geoheritage. So again, getting that recognized with the IUCN. A very important one for geological heritage is this conservation of movable heritage from 2016. Sites are one thing, but aspects of geological heritage like fossils and minerals are movable. And the issue goes way beyond site conservation. So this is a very important motion. It's like CITES and the trade of endangered species. But moving down to this international designation, or having established the principles, is the 2020 resolution on key geoheritage areas. That should say geoheritage rather than geodiversity, as a complement to key biodiversity areas. So it's a program of recognizing those most important geological sites across the planet as being worthy of conservation and getting that on national agendas. So it started in 2020, and here's the quote here. The motion requests the Director General and the World Commission for Protected Areas to support the development of a detailed study envisaging the establishment of a future IUCN initiative on key geoheritage areas as a complement to key biodiversity areas in order to protect geological heritage sites of global conservation significance and move towards a more integrated conservation. So we got the acceptance of this in 2020. So then subsequently working on defining a program for key geoheritage areas. And we submitted to the World Conservation Congress, just passed a few weeks ago, a motion on identifying geoheritage areas for safeguarding sites of global significance and move towards holistic nature conservation. So this is a huge meeting, people from all over the planet. This one was in Abu Dhabi, and one of our colleagues was there presenting and pushing this. But actually, we got approval for this one even before the meeting. So as of 24th of September, we actually have approval to develop a global designation for geological sites. And actually from states and government agencies, it was 100% support of the voting. So this is really important. This is something, it's not just about the most outstanding world heritage. It's not a search on iconic sites. It's not those with sustainable development. This is all the geological sites which are important as part of in a global context. Because let's face it, national borders and an artificial constraint, and geology knows no boundaries in that sense. So what is a key geoheritage area? It's a defined area where exceptional geological active processes and features, such as rocks, minerals, fossil sediments, representing past or ongoing earth processes, contribute significantly to the global understanding of the planet's history and life support systems are present. So there is always a connection with biodiversity. The aim of the initiative is to recognise and maintain geological heritage values of international significance and to communicate and promote this information in order to foster their conservation and advance geoconservation worldwide. So I said before, this is something which looks at all the sites, not just the exceptional, the iconic, or the ones which can have a direct benefit to a community through sustainable development. Now we have approval for this. The next challenge is to actually make it all happen. The international significance is justify the exceptional value. So far, there's a draft list of 12 themes in here, aspects of processes. This is taken from a UNESCO framework. So we have themes of history of the Earth, evolution of life, tectonic systems, erosional systems, volcanic systems, fluvial and hydrological systems, caves and karsts, coastal, marine, glacial, periglacial, desert, semi-desert, meteorites and soils. So these are sort of general selection areas. And the challenge now is actually to set up committees effectively for all of these, of specialists who are in a position to actually make a judgment of proposals. And there are certain criteria. They're not really criteria. They're sort of like different sorts of how would you say this? Categories things can fit into. One is representative of a particular sort of rock type or process. One represents something which is very rare. Integrity is in its very good condition operating. It's a type locality. We have lots of those in geology. I work on global stratotypes. That's absolutely crucial there. Type localities. And also the whole thing of the history of geology. Things like Hutton's unconformity are important because these are things which the science is based on, and these are like reference localities. So I thought I'd just throw in some pictures of sites, something a little bit more interesting than just words here. Some of the things which could be key geoheritage areas. I apologize, they are mainly UK examples. But for instance, here, my region of Southwest England, this is Devon in the middle here, is the type area, the Devonian time period. I am Devonian. This was proposed in 1841, and we still have a lot of the sites, like this fossil site here with the amazing trilobites, this site with ammonoids, this site here, which was also historically yielded a lot of these things, are all part of the inspiration for the foundation of a global time system. And so there'll be other localities in other parts of the planet which are fundamental to establishing other divisions. Okay, all the stratotypes now for the Devonian are now in other parts of the planet because our area is very tectonized. But this is one group which could go into the history of planetary evolution and life. This one here is in a geopark. So a geopark, only certain sites in the geopark would be a KGA, not the whole geopark. This is an important thing, the specific science focal points. All of these sites are in the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site in Southwest England. And again, the heritage site has a sequence from Permian through to end Cretaceous and some Quaternary, but only certain sites would meet the criteria of being particular importance. So this is the famous Lyme Regis area with Milankovitch cycles preserved and a very important marine reptile fauna. Kimmeridge Bay, the mud rocks there, have an extremely important late Jurassic sequence and also an oil source rock. And there's a lot of very interesting things there. This is a candidate GSSP in Dorset as well. So that could automatically have an international designation without conservation. And this site here has an important end Jurassic transition from marine to non-marine, but it also has a very important Quaternary record on top, which has evidence of more than one marine high stand, more than one interglacial period. And this is another site, a classic thing in the history of the planet of the Earth, the Lagerstatens, where the fossils are so well preserved, you can rebuild an ecosystem. So this is a Devonian peat bog, a Devonian swamp with little trees. I mean, they're about this size. all preserved in a volcanic sort of silicious chert. Absolutely incredible site. And these are key sites in when we look at the history of the Earth. Tectonic systems, again, a Southwest example. We have an incredible coastal exposure of the Variscan orogeny, the end Carboniferous, beginning Permian. I don't have pictures here. In the south, we have a zone of naps, and you can see some of the thrust there. And you go from a transition from, you can't see it very well, horizontal fold to vertical folds, like that. And incredible patterns on the beach and structures on the beach as well. Just a really wonderful transect through the evolution of an orogeny, and sort of calibrated with fossils as well. So this is one of the best exposures of the Variscan fold belt anywhere, because it's coastal. Erosional systems. This is an interesting one. This is a theme which might need to evolve. I have a picture of the Grand Canyon here, and that's obviously erosion which has created that. But also, that is the fluvial system. And other effects in this area are also desertic systems. So it's the erosional system is one category which could maybe be merged. These are just my own personal ideas. This has the groups involved need to discuss this. Volcanic systems. I recently was lucky enough to go to El Teide in the Canarias, somewhere over 4,000 meters. This incredible volcanic structure with a range of, this is a lava river. There's lava tunnels with some of the lava flowing out, an incredible volcanic system with little vegetation, landscape is scattered with volcanic bombs. It's really quite inspirational. And there are many volcanic areas on the planet, but the Canary systems have become like a reference. But of course, one mustn't forget the fossil systems. And here is again the Jarts Causeway in the north of Ireland with the basaltic columns representing a Paleocene volcanic episode. Fluvial lacustrine systems, these are processes, and these are really important for ecology. So this is very much where things join up. So we have the Odessa National Park again with spectacular limestone gorges and waterfalls, which have sort of been much described. And this is where I was lucky to be about 4 weeks ago, the Danube Delta between Romania and Ukraine. We didn't cross to Ukraine for obvious reasons. It's an amazing network of channels, lakes, and with islands of Aeolian sands within it as well. It's an incredible structure, and it tells very nicely the story of the evolution of the delta from Pleistocene to present. Caves and karsts. I mean, again, Monte Perdido, high upland karst in Spain. This is part of Jeju Island. This is a lava tube. They go for many kilometers in South Korea. They're World Heritage already. It's a geopark, but within the KGA, the incredible preservation of these lava tubes is quite exceptional. And we are very lucky to have a permission from sort of a year ago from the Korean government to look at some of these conservation sites. This is a simple local cave in Devon as a representation of a cave system with stalactite formations. In this particular case, the significance of the cave, it's got 3 ages or 3 species of hominid from Homo heidelbergensis, Neanderthal man, and Homo sapiens. So it's very important from that perspective. As a karst cave, it's very small, but it's representative, and there's some incredible karst systems on the planet. Coastal systems, again, Southwest England. This is the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site, which is also a classic place for coastal evolution. You have this famous arch, which is late Jurassic, early Cretaceous limestones. You have this structure here, which is kilometers long, the Chesil Beach, and then the famous Lulworth Cove. So this is part of a very well-studied system. And of course, in other areas, there's other very important coastal systems, but this one is a classic one for understanding the processes. Marine systems, we don't often see these, but this is going back to Jeju Island. And this area here has got algal sediments. These are lithothamnium. They're basically algal growths which roll around in here. So it's a very interesting a model of a tropical system producing an algal sediment, which we know very well in the geological record. So here it is actually being formed. Glacial periglacial, again, very important processes. This is a random glacier in Iceland. It may or may not be of global significance, but it shows active processes. Also, unfortunately, it maps retreat for global warming. Back to Odessa again in Spain. So as well as active glacial, one will have a fossil glacial. So this is an absolute classic glacial valley with a very nice platform, which the ice came here and then cut down this valley. In my region again, we have an amazingly preserved periglacial landscape from the last ice age, the area of Dartmoor. So we have tor formations, which are being exposed by periglacial permafrost activity, and stone rows formed. And this is an aerial photograph, and I hope you can see all these rays coming here, which is all the periglacial activity preserved in the modern landscape. It's as though the permafrost was just turned off one day. So it's a very important landscape on the edge of Quaternary glaciation. Desert and semi-desert. This is the Run of Kutch in West India. A very bizarre area. That over there is Pakistan. These are huge areas of salt flats, and this area can dry up completely. And you have this incredible terrain full of evaporites. And some of this is used as an analog. It's supposed to be an analog of Martian landscapes because of the extreme conditions. So there's a lot of work being done on this area. So as well as your classical desert, your stone desert, your sand desert, there are other sorts of desert systems. So this is strongly evaporitic. I've never visited a meteorite impact site, so I'm afraid this is the only picture I have. But they, again, very important, very emotional, and these are something which is an important category. And people on the planet understand why meteorites are interesting and why we should be concerned about them as well. Soils, very much the intersection of geology and ecology. I'm not saying that either of these sites are of global importance, but this is part of the huge lowest dust platforms from the ice ages in Eastern Europe, in Romania. This particular one is associated with a Roman settlement, and so there's an interaction of archaeology showing the end of the phase. But there are sections in tens of meters of this with a very, very important Quaternary record. And this is simply an area of a lagoon, which was formed when a barrier beach rolled forward and blocked the sea in southwest England. And so you have here a transition from a marine estuarine sediment into peat. So this area and a number of the sites has a really important late ice age into Holocene floral record, climate record. And here's a bunch of students doing some sampling of it. And that's what we mustn't forget. A lot of sites are internationally important, but also we need to be able to use them. And in this case, it's a protected site, but we can use it for education. Now, I mentioned about the erosion and how you could put erosion into glacial, you can put it into fluvial, you can put it into deserts. There's one group of sites which don't sit comfortably in the current sort of group of themes, and these are some of the mineralogical and petrological sites, which are also very important for our science and economy also. So this is something we have to work on. So here's a quarry in mid-Devon, which is a type locality for the mineral waverlite, which is aluminophosphate. Very strange. It doesn't fit into any pattern. Joints in the surface of the rock are covered with this phosphate mineral. This is an arsenate mineral, forms during tropical weathering of a copper deposit. It's a copper phosphate in southwest England. The southwest England was active for mining in the 19th century when geology was developing, so we have so many type localities. And this is another incredible site which is very relevant to what we're doing today. It's a lithium-enriched pegmatite associated with a skarn, which is parts with copper, tin, tungsten, and with tantalum, cesium, and a whole range of other things. So this is mineralogically a really important site, but it's also a very interesting analog for the sorts of lithium deposits people and rare earth deposits now. It won't be worked as a national park, but people are studying it to look at develop methods for assessing and looking for deposits. So again, a lot of these sites, it's not just about pure science, it's also a strong link to society. In this case, we have a very good analog for just the support sort of deposits we need for the future. Now, the other challenge within all of this is we've got to set up the various groups, the advisory groups for the various themes. We've also need to set up a council or secretariat to monitor the process. So with various ideas here, committees, to make sure any proposals for sites actually are properly assessed. And we need to have world leaders, but we also need people experienced within this. So one of the important discussions in Abu Dhabi a couple of weeks ago was how we can develop this and look at the way key biodiversity areas are developed. So looking at interactions between scientific organizations, professional organizations, locals, indigenous groups. So all sorts of things such as yourselves here, and then feeding into this process. It's a global process. One can't organize this from some office in possibly Malaga. It will be impossible. So it needs the input of a global community of geologists to make this a reality. But okay, I'll go back to that one again. So this is really important. So it's going to be only through a collaboration between everyone involved and interested we can realize. And this is not against, it's not in competition with anything else. A World Heritage, Geoparks and things. This is an independent process which can inform everything else. But it's quite an interesting one. I did this analysis a couple of years ago. And people talk about geodiversity and conservation and things, and they sort of vision that it might be somehow interesting and useful. But if you look at, I did the classic review. You do a review of something someone else has published, and then you publish it. But looking at what had been published in Geoheritage up to 2022, and looking at within the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, there's 17, but it's a brilliant selection. 45% of Geoheritage papers have some relevance to Sustainable Development Goals. So integrating with biodiversity, urban geodiversity, sustainability communities, geoparks, education, geotourism, all tick all these boxes and things. So, and Springer, as the publisher of Geoheritage, is getting very interesting indeed, because they can see a journal like this helps them meet the goals they've set themselves for contributing to the SDGs. So I think this is a way of demonstrating that what we're doing ourselves is very important for actually the future of the planet. It's all of this is published in Geoheritage, so it's quite important. It's beyond a simple academic exercise. This is something which is important for the future. It starts off with science, and then it permeates into everything else. So that's out of place. So this is like basically plotting through time the sorts of designations of geological heritage. So back in 72, we have World Heritage, just a little bit later than the biosphere reserves. The IEGS set up its International Commission on Stratigraphy in 77, and then it wasn't me at the time, that was a bit later, started looking at global stratitypes, which are the most rigorously selected international geological sites with huge panels of scientists and levels of voting. ProGEO was effectively formed in 88, Dean Suppose in 1991, ProGEO formally in 93, and then Global Geoparks in 96. And that's when we started with one level of designations, which is the first round of Global Geoparks didn't. Geoparks became a global thing in 2015. IAGS Geoheritage sites in 2022. And key geoheritage areas in 2025. So it's been a very interesting progress of gradual development of awareness of the significance and actually support for geological heritage. So just a few concluding remarks here. just as biodiversity can be more than just a number of biological species inhabiting a given area, it can also include not only the range of habitats they inhabit, but also the intrinsic genetic diversity. And geodiversity is very much more than just a range of rock types and minerals, although someone might get impression sometimes it's just variety. You know, it's about the significance of the particular features. And it's also about the processes of forming the material, and also in the context of deep time, some 4,600 million years. So it's not just a historical archive of everything which has happened to our planet since its form. It's also the manifestations of these processes today, and not only on the surface, but within. And we share this archive with all the other inhabitants of our planet, and we have a duty to safeguard our own pages of this immense story that's going back to the Dean Declaration for present and future generations to learn from. And if you understand the past, I think Hutton's line was no, it was lie a little bit later. The past is the key to the future. These lessons, if we listen, can help us make the right decision for the planet's future. The thing about the KGA initiative, it provides a comprehensive international approach to identifying and safeguarding this heritage in a way which is not achievable through another designation, because it has to be exceptional, it has to be sustainable, it has to be iconic. These are all the sites which are important to the history and future of the planet. ProGEO is a very important organisation in this process because we're independent of government, unlike UNESCO, IUCN, IUGS. So we can campaign, make representation, but we can work in collaboration with all these groups to actually fulfil one of the fundamental aims for which we were first established in '88, and that's the recognition of global geosites and the contribution of a geodiversity and geoheritage to the planet we live on now. So that's what I've got to say for now. So thank you very much.
Preguntas para Kevin. Tienen aquí en el auditorio los poquitos que estamos, ¿alguna comentario o pregunta? Es muy interesante. Es un resumen de veras así de mucha información en poco tiempo, ¿no? De toda la historia que ha habido desde antes de la designación de geoparques, desde los inicios de todo esto del patrimonio geológico y geodiversidad, incluso de la institución que él preside de ProGEO, ¿no? ProGEO, que vemos que viene desde 1988, o sea, ya tiene sus años ProGEO, y es una organización no gubernamental que pesa mucho en las decisiones de lo que ahora nos explica Kevin, sobre todo para lo último de lo último que acaba de salir, que son las Geoheritage áreas, ¿no? O las zonas, las tags, ¿no? Que acabo de mencionar. Entonces es algo nuevo, es algo que hay que tomar en cuenta para los que nos interesan estos temas, ¿no? No es solo Geoparques UNESCO, o sea, no todo queda ahí para Geoparques UNESCO o para algo controlado solo por la UNESCO, que cada vez es más difícil por los requisitos que van pidiendo, pero que hay otras alternativas que serían un poco más sencillo para proponer sitios importantes sobre patrimonio geológico o sobre sitios de geodiversidad. Carlos.
Yes, but congratulations for this lecture. I have with the KGA name is Geoheritage or Geodiversity, because I reviewed a first version of Geodiversity areas, and now I am looking at this Geoheritage areas.
It's a very important question because the words you use form people's opinions. Heritage is always about an inheritance, about something history and archaeology, whereas the geodiversity is about everything and the processes. So it's a very important to point that and what to actually run with. I mean, So it's a decision, along with things to do with the themes and the criteria. It's an important thing that I think we have to consider, because a lot of those pictures I showed, they weren't heritage, they were actual going on now. So the words can create different views in people. So I mean, we always have to be careful with the words, and especially internationally, because some words can have a different feeling, a different meaning in different countries. So we need something which fits everywhere as best we possibly can.
I know that heritage is always more touching for people than diversity, but the definitive name is what? Geodiversity or geoheritage?
The normal discussion one can, and we're looking at ProGEO of renewal, and we have some definitions on our website. Geodiversity would generally be everything, all the aspects of geological materials and processes. Geoheritage would normally be considered to be those parts of that which we've selected as being special for conservation.
But in the KGA's initiative, which will be the definitive name?
At the moment, it's Geoheritage, and that's, and I've got a few, I know through that there's a couple of things I put due to it, but the definitive name as it stands is Key Geoheritage Areas. One thing I'd just like to say, if anyone is interested in ProGEO and joining our global initiative, I've got some flyer here with a QR stand. So at least have a look, because it's what I found. The Geoheritage meetings I go to, they're scientific meetings have got very serious, and it's very serious business scientific funding. But within Geoheritage, it's all those people who really love geology and love communicating it and looking at its connections to society and celebrating it. So it's a wonderful area within geology if you love the subject and you want to share it. But also it's that interface between geology, geological sciences, and society. What we do, as I showed with the slide for Geoheritage, we're doing something which is important to the planet. And that's important to the future of the planet in our geological way, because at the end of the day, and no geology, no ecology, because there's no planet. So it's as fundamental as that.
Alguien del público, no, no. One more comment. Here.
In Mexico and many countries in Latin America, biodiversity is not protected formally, and it has been proposed to use natural protected areas, for example. So it's like a special context in countries like Mexico, and I have seen something that draws my attention. And is there an intersection between geological risks and the conservation? Because, for example, places like Morelia, Michoacán, place where we have a very rich zone protected area with recognized biodiversity, but you also have connected fault, you have development and urban development. My question is maybe can we use the biodiversity knowledge to try to make some connection to protect areas related to biological risks and conservation to biological to biodiversity. Something.
Yeah, this is really important. This is again the interface between like geological processes and communities and people living in areas. So there are a lot of geodiversity, geoheritage sites around the world which are selected because of the geological risk and the features. There's one in my region, was the site of a disastrous flood in 1958, I think it was, which destroyed half a village. So the geodiversity site records the features associated with this disastrous flood so that people can learn from them. Geologically, the flood was a geological process, but the human consequences. So yes, absolutely. Geological risks and things and features which are ongoing, that's a very important part of the process. Those active geological processes, so they're absolutely perfectly within geodiversity and geoheritage.
And also, well, talking a little bit also about the biodiversity, topics and issues started 200 years ago or so, the biodiversity and the protection of regions, the reserve areas like the Sierra Gorda, Zona de la Biosfera. It's all for protect the biodiversity, and the rocks were forgotten, no? But no protection for the rocks until I guess the 1991 Earth Act of DIMS, France. They start over there to think about the geodiversity and the geoconservation and geotourism and all these concepts, and then later come the geoparks, no? But now it's I think a very strong movement, global movement to tell the world, hey, the rocks that where we are standing up, they are also important to look at and to preserve. Some, and especially those that are very unique, to be preserved, the geoheritage places, but also the geodiversity. So that's it's we are on the way. A little bit started very late compared with the biodiversity. I mean, they are many years ahead of us. But now, yeah, I start to listen more often that the basement of the pyramid is the geodiversity.
Yeah.
And then from there, the biodiversity, and then from there, the society and the culture, and so on. And finally, all these kind of movements or organizations that try to preserve them at last. But yeah, it's a if you compare the history of biodiversity against geodiversity, they were ahead of us many years ago.
But it's very important that now within IUCN have formally accepted that geodiversity is part of nature and an important thing to consider. That is a very great breakthrough. It used to be considered, oh, rocks are old, you don't need to conserve them. IUCN has accepted that. And it's not just our historical rocks, fossils and things, it's also the processes. And there's a realization now that the geological processes is underpin just about everything happening on this planet. And that is a really big thing. And that's only just happened in the last few years. And I'd like to say as well, the different organizations I mentioned, IUGS, IUCN, UNESCO, Geoparks and ProGEO, what is really looking forward in the future is all of us working together, because we have shared goals. We're doing slightly different facets within it, but it's completely complementary. And that's what I hope. And the conversations I've had, I think that's going to be the future. When it's not going to be separate organizations doing things, it's going to be organizations working together.
And you're part of the member of this the commission of the
IUCN.
IUCN. Yeah. We're lucky also to have you here talking to us about all this.
Thanks.
Okay, so no more questions. ¿Qué más preguntas para Ken? Si quieren preguntar en español,
Sí, sí.
Él entiende perfecto el español.
Más o menos.
Así que, si no, pues, si no hay en la audiencia, no hay nadie del público, ¿no? Muy bien. Entonces, pues ya podemos concluir y terminamos otorgándole a Kevin una constancia de su charla de hoy. Aquí se la presentamos para que bueno, se la lleve de recuerdo aquí de la visita al Instituto de Geociencias. Y bueno, nosotros estaremos por aquí ya nada más un rato más y nos vamos porque vamos al campo, a aprovecharlo. Mañana lo llevo a conocer la Peña de Bernal y entonces, pues vamos a andar por ahí, hablando más sobre estos temas, aprovechando la visita de Kevin, gracias aquí a que el doctor Carlos Canet, pues fue, digamos, el que impulsó también esta visita. Así que aquí lo tenemos y le damos gracias a Carlos también por eso. Thank you. Thank you very much. Vamos.
So please, can we have a look at ProGEO and see if it's useful and interesting? And as I say, we do need everyone's input to make all of this happen.
¿Qué hacemos?
Porque puede estar pegado.
Lo podemos pegar, bueno, podemos dar uno lo podemos repartir. Y los datos los vamos a poner aquí en el. Mira, ahí lo ven. Y vamos a hacer para.
O si tiene el digital, podemos estudiarlo muy.
Bueno, hacemos nosotros para pasar la